Be prepared. It's a message that we're hearing a lot as we enter into hurricane season, and many of us remember that damage from last year, don't we, from Hurricane Irma that just left us.
That's right, and Matthew the year before, and we're thankful that people were able to stay safe during the storm, and even now there are communities still working to recover. Northeast Florida Long-Term Recovery Organization wants to help. So joining us now is Michael Boylan. He's the chairperson for the group. So welcome to First Coast Living.
My pleasure. Thank you both.
This is great. We were just talking before we came back. I hadn't heard about the group, and you said, well, that's because it just started in January, right?
The Long-Term Recovery Organization is a combination of about 30 organizations from the Red Cross, for-profit organizations, Catholic Charities, and others who came together and says, how can we help those folks who are still in need at this point in time, well past the storm date?
And how do you actually provide the support for people?
Right now, the challenge is getting an understanding as to what needs are still out there. Whose homes are still damaged, who's going through difficult spiritual or emotional issues, how can we help those folks? And so we have a group here from around the country, actually volunteers who come here to do from an organization called World Renew. And they are out there now canvassing and meeting with folks, trying to capture that information. Because it's important for us to be able to help those people, we need to know the need first in order to do so.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of us don't, think about, because, the power goes out. And when the power is out, then you're thinking, okay, recovery. And then when the power comes back on, most people kind of get back, repair, maybe a fallen tree limb. But some of these people are living in hotels still now. FEMA
was providing hotel assistance through March, and that has now ended, but some of those people still are doing that. A sad story I heard the other day, the interview folks who were doing a home in San Marco, and as they were interviewing the person in their home, they were hearing raindrops falling through their ceiling. It's that kind of damage and challenges out there.
Wow. Yeah, there's so many people, including, I was talking about one of my friends actually that's still suffering and still living in a hotel, her and her family, because they haven't had relief effort yet. So how do you know how someone is credible or reliable as far as resources?
Well, that step is to come next, but what we need to know, and why they are canvassing neighborhoods, is in order to be able to see for themselves the damage those people are experiencing. The process actually goes from us capturing these folks and their information and then turn them over to what's called case managers, people who be, in effect, navigators, if you will, to help them through the process of getting their homes back in order. So, and part of that process is obviously managing vendors and people they use to do that kind of repair work. So FEMA dollars are going to be available to do this work, so we as credible stewards of taxpayer dollars need to be sensitive to making the fact that we are getting productive work done.
So is this something that came from other areas, and then a group came here and said, hey, we want to do that in Northeast Florida, or is this something, how did this genesis?
The idea of, and most of us think about hurricane relief, as you said, Curtis, early on in the process, as getting people, water and electricity in their homes back in some sense of order. These are recovery work, so it's a little bit different kind of work in that sense. Most communities have what's called a volunteer organization active in disaster. We did not have one of those in Jacksonville. We're in the process of starting one up now. So the Long-Term Recovery Organization was created sort of from the ground up in order to do the work that we're doing today. So we're hopeful that down the road we will be like other communities. We will have a VOAD, as it's called, and then from which the LTRO would then grow out. So God forbid we have another storm or disaster of this magnitude, we will be ready and prepared to support those families.
We have been pretty lucky I've lived here 22 years now, and the last couple of years has been the worst of what I've seen in 22 years. So it's just, no offense, hopefully your organization doesn't have a lot of work moving forward.
We pray the same, because these are the same kind of folks who are doing day-to-day work. So this is extra work for a lot of those nonprofit organizations. They're providing day-to-day service. This is actually work on top of that. So we really have to respect that. And I do want to share, it's important to also share that once the needs assessment work is done, we will be having a report available, and we'd like to share that with you perhaps next week or shortly thereafter, to give you a sense of what the actual need is in our community to this day and how we as a community can help these folks.
Yeah, because we always need volunteers for sure. And so what about, because you were mentioning the physical work, of course, that goes into that, but what about the spiritual and emotional you were talking about?
Yes.
Because, I think that's a real need too.
I spoke to a woman the other day. She called up on our hotline, and I was answering some of those calls, and she said, well, my house is back in order, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to handle my mortgage going forward, because the money I was using, living paycheck to paycheck, she used to get her house back in order. She says, it's putting a tremendous amount of stress on me personally and emotionally. we actually have a group of folks in the Emotional and Spiritual Care Committee that's going to be used to help keep those people connected and help keep their spirits up. So that's a very important work.
Very good work.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys joining us. Appreciate the organization for what you're doing in our community.
Yeah,
Glad to do
everything you're doing, we appreciate it.
Thank
and
you.
remember, you can learn more about the Northeast Florida Long-Term Recovery Organization by visiting their website, duvaldisasterrecovery.org.